here with Phil Burt, and today we're going to be doing a video that's going to help you for 6 quick fixes for common bike fit mistakes. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. These are the things that you see most of and that are easily fixable if you are having issues, pains, discomfort that are going to be easily
just 6 things that you can quickly try yourself, and if it alleviates your problem, you've self-diagnosed, you know.
Perfect.
All bike fit's about is getting an accurate diagnosis or working diagnosis of what the problem is. Is it you or is it the bike? And this is if it's the bike causing your pain, you can make these changes, and if your problem goes away, you're stiff necked, you sort of thing, then you know, all right, that's it, and then we'll follow up and say what you can do with it. Bike fit mistake number 1 for today is having the nose of your saddle too far up. Now, the things you might be experiencing if you have got your noses too far up are thus. Firstly, it will make you have to flex more for your back. So if you've got lower back pain cycling and you don't think that your front end's really low, just check your saddle. They can move out, you know, you might not set it up, but if the saddle is up, it fixes the pelvis and it can't rotate forward. Do you want me to get the pelvis?
I'll bring the pelvis.
There we go. So here we are. So if the nose of the saddle's up, it will block the pelvis, forcing it back here, and that'll mean you'll have to do more lumbar flexion, and the front end will feel further away, and it'll feel, and you might well get low back pain. So the first thing having your nose of your saddle too far up is it can cause you lower back pain. The second thing it can cause is because of that, it can make the front end feel like it's miles away. So the reach is effective, and you might find yourself coming miles shorter to here and not to the hood, finding it hard to get down in the drops because the back. In fact, it'd be very hard to get in the drops if your nose of your saddle's up because your hips are going to get very close. If you're getting tight hips, it can because your nose of your saddle is up, and the bike, and then therefore it's closing up your hip too much. So those are the general things that people experience, and that it basically is such a quick fix. If you're suffering from any of those like ailments, low back pain, tight hips, front of the bike feels too far away, and it's suddenly come on, just check your saddle, and you don't have to give it excessive tilt, all right? But 1 or 2 degrees tilting downwards can make a huge difference, and you can do that yourself, and you compare apples with apples. Then if you don't change anything else, just change the tilt, and you go out and your problem feels better, you know you've got the solution for it.
Perfect. So between 0 and -3 is the most that you would tilt, right?
Time trial can get a bit more sometimes, excessive, but that's a very, very aggressive, very front on that time trial position. But yeah, when we went and I challenged, changed the rule on saddle tilt with UCI in 2015. There used to be this rule that you can only have it 2 degrees down, and everyone was panicky about that, depending how they measured it. They asked me how far to go, and I figured that no one ever go to is -9. I have seen someone come in here with their saddle tilt at -12, but that's because they were trying to solve another problem. So, for example, if you've got the wrong crank length on, your hips getting very tight, a lot of people will tilt the saddle trying to open up the hips, but it's actually the crank length that are closing it. But this is just a quick, easy fix for something like, I've got low back pain, I don't know, it's the easiest thing in the world. You don't need to have a bike fit to do it, you can just render that yourself.
So between 0 and -3?
I would say yes, yeah. Not too. You can do it, you can manipulate it yourself, okay? So just give it a bit more, Most people ride a saddle either completely level, or it's like, important to remember where you sit on the saddle. If you can work that out, some saddles have a kick up at the back. So you might measure it and say, oh, well, that's nose down. But actually, in fact, if you sit right in the middle and that bit has a scoop, or like, it might not be level down. So yeah, I would self-adjust it. Just keep going to the point where you'll know when it's too much because you'll feel like you're slipping off the front, or you've got too much pressure on your hands, all right? At that point, come back. All right, so there's no problem if you have a turbo or you're just going out with an Anki. It's like, I'm going to give a bit more tilt. That's too much. Just what we call micro adjust. So up and back, yeah?
Perfect.
Pelvic position when your nose of your saddle's up, if you just rotate backwards from OK, that's a good. So what happens here, the nose of the saddle will stop you rotating the pelvis forward, puts extra strain on the lumbar spine here. And then if you just rotate slightly forward, by moving the nose of the saddle down, often that'll relax the lower back completely, because the pelvis is allowed to move forward. And if you've got too much tilt, say the saddle's too nose down, you might find that you're almost falling off it and everything's falling forwards like this. So the happy medium is the place you want to be. Saddle nose too far up, 1 degree down, 2 degree down, 3 degree down. That's why saddle tilt's important. Common bike fit mistake number 2 is having the front end too low. Now, things you're going to experience with that are too much weight in your arms, so you'll have arm pump or numb hands. You can feel like your arms are permanently locked out because it's so low you're having to straighten up. That can work back into your neck and shoulders. It can mean course, because you're lower at the front, you have to extend more to look up the road, so you can get neck pain with it. And those are the most common mistakes. It can even work all the way back to your lower back and give you low back pain because you're having to flex so much to get to the front. Easy fix for that, if you have put the front end down and is to flip the spaces underneath the stem. If you haven't done that and the steer tube's cut, a little quick trick is, and it doesn't look great, but it can get you to the bottom of the problem, is just in flipping the stem and inverting it. And what you do when you flip the stem is you basically give yourself quite a few millimeters higher at the front end, all right? Just bringing that front end up, okay? It's a common mistake that people often make and don't know they've done it. And if you flip and invert that stem, it can give you an idea as to why that's happening. If that feels better, then you know your front end's too low, and then you can look at permanent alterations to make that different. Common bike fit mistake number 3. Bikes come with standard kits. There's not really a mistake, but you might not be aware that your handlebars are too wide for you. Okay, so a certain size bike will assume you're a certain size, and they'll come with a certain width handlebar. Now, things to look out for that with, and I often see this, is somebody will think that their reach is too far away, like their stem is too long, or the saddle's too far back because they're really struggling to reach it. But if your handlebars are too wide, you have to go outside. So you have to sort of like splay your hands. So that can make it feel like the bike's very far away. The other thing it does is make you weight bear much more in here because you tend to sit on the inside, and that can lead to numbness in the hand as well. It can lead to locked out arms as well. Yet again, we talked about it. And then locked out arms, then you always leads to a bit of shoulder pain and neck pain. So too wider handlebars can really, really affect comfort. Here's the good news though. If you narrow the handlebar and it's just a cheap, not a fancy carbon fiber thing, it's not the most expensive thing in the world, and it can make a massive difference to comfort. Remember where these hoods are, 16 different hand positions, most comfortable position, really makes a big difference to your comfort on longer rides. But here's the real bargain bucket thing that comes with that. If you go narrower, that is more aero, and significantly more aero. People go through the air right. So if you're not a big, huge gorilla of a man like me, then you don't have to ride a bike like a gorilla like this. When you come in here, you're much more aero. But I would always look at handlebar width, not for aero reasons in the first instance, but it does make a big difference to comfort. My clients often return with comments like, wow, I couldn't believe how much a difference that made.
That was the first thing that we sorted on mine when I had really bad shoulder pain. I did an Nordax and my arm was sore, and I think I had 40 centimetre wide, and you saw that, like, I guess hard to tell is look in a mirror and
I was just going to say,
narrow down, not
if you can put
wide.
a mirror in front of you and you look at your hands, and your hands are outside your acromioclavicular joint, which is in the middle of your shoulder here, if your hands are outside your shoulders on the bike, they're too wide. They should be in line. So here you can see that Katie's hands are generally in line with her shoulders, and they're not massively outside of them, so she isn't going to get the problems that too wider handlebars can present you with. Common bike fit mistake number 4 is having your cleats too far forward. So the cleats, if you're using them on either your mountain bike shoes, less so mountain bike, but more so with road bike, if they're too far forward, what it can do is bring the knee forward of the foot. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it is one of the most common reasons to pick up anterior knee pain. So that means front of your kneecap pain. So if you're going out riding and you're coming away with bilateral knee pain, when you come up with almost both legs, at the end of ride, your knees just feel tight. You might feel a bit low on the bike. You might feel just like crunched up. Just think about looking at your cleats, and I don't know of any reason why you can't move your cleats all the way backwards. I don't know any performance reason or any negative to it, and it'll often get people out of jail with just having there might be something else going on with the overall fit, but as a first port of call, just to get yourself feeling better on the bike, just move your cleats all the way back. Remember, when you move the cleat backwards, the foot moves forward, which opens up your knee. So imagine being in a gym doing single leg lunges and you go miles forward and putting your knee under a load of pressure. That's what happens when your cleats are too far forward. And by moving the cleat backwards, you just open up the knee and decrease the forces that resolve around the front of the knee. If that works, it might be worth looking at other things, for example, your saddle fore afterwards, because it's probably normally a bit multifactorial, but the cleats backwards is a quick and easy way to get you knee pain free. Common bike mistake number 5, wrong width saddle. Let's talk about too narrow first of all. So if somebody comes into my clinic, we'll always have a good chat about the goal at the beginning, and often they'll say, okay, I just don't feel comfortable with the saddle. If you are someone who finds themselves constantly pushing back on the saddle, it's nearly always potentially that you're on the wrong whip saddle, because what you're doing is you're pushing back, looking for that sit bone support. So if you're constantly fidgeting on a saddle, looking into whether it's the right saddle width for you is important. Remember, most men are 143 or 140, most women 155, 155. Different saddle companies do different widths. Basically, but the hard and fast rules don't apply to everyone. There are women who like smaller saddles, some men need wider ones. But the common mistake, what I'm thinking, if you feel like you're always falling off the front of the saddle, or you always feel like you're pushing, you want to pushing back, you could be on the wrong whip saddle. And just looking into that and seeing whether you can make try a cheaper, wider saddle, for example, so that can make a massive difference.
And that would also link back to tilt. So
Yes.
if you're constantly moving forward or back, it might be that the tilt is way too low or way too high if you're constantly wriggling around.
And that's the massive problem. You're absolutely right, Katie, with bike fit. It is multifactorial. So maybe address tilt first of all. But if you still feel like, it just doesn't feel, it's nearly always the people who say, I just feel like I'm constantly searching for this perfect position. I feel like I push back. They are nearly always taken through all the fancy process. It's not that they're on the wrong whip saddle. They need more support, or the wrong type shape of saddle that widens quicker. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Bike fit mistake number 6: hoods too far down or round. Now, if you're experiencing numb hands, arm pain through here, neck pain, lower back pain, even neck pain, it can often be, if you've got your handlebars rotated down or the hood set too far round and down, it means you have to go and reach them. Now, Katie's are set up because I did this, and it might not be aesthetically, it's not what you would call the most race oriented, but because she does long miles, she's looking for comfort. This meets your hand perfectly and supports you to have a slightly more upright position for the longer miles. Of course, if you mark Cavendish, they're going to be dead flat because he wants to get down and aero and go for it. Horses for courses, all right? If you're looking to do a 50-mile ride at the weekend in complete comfort, or 100 miles, and you get numb hands, sore neck and everything, just try rotating hoods back ever so slightly. You can do it from the handlebar if you want to, just ever so slight rotation, or you can actually do it with the hood itself. Doesn't matter. What I would do is do that and see if that feels better, all right? It's unbelievable how even 3-degree movement in these can make a demonstrative difference in how comfortable we feel on the bike. So looking at your hand position on the hood here, if you just lift your hands off there, okay, you can see that the hood is ever so slightly angled back, and then when you put your hand on, it meets your hand rather than you having to take your hand round to meet it. So if they're too far down, you'll have to go all the way around here to meet it. That's it, Katie, yeah. And that produces that extra strain on the wrist, numb hands, a lot more upper body workout. Where you are there, let the hoods do the work. They can come and meet you and meet your hand in a nice, what we call wrist neutral position.
Right, so that is all the tips. I'll leave your details below if you actually want to come and see Phil in Manchester.
Yeah.
Anything else? Closing?
All I would say is quite often, these are quick, easy fixes. Obviously, some bike fixes can be more complicated. Some people are injuries, but if you just take these, it's all about working out where the problem is, and they're nice, quick, easy things. One thing I would say is always remember where you start. So if you're going to change your saddle and it doesn't work, remember where it was. Make some measurements. Say, I can go back to there if I wanted to. But this is what we call, this is really micro adjusting. So it might be a small problem. Everything else on the bike is absolutely fine. It's the right frame size. You got the right, and you just haven't got something. So when we see someone, for example, hood all down, it's like it's so easy to do. I always say there's no bad positions, there's just better ones. And
yeah.
These are quick tips to help people get more comfortable quickly. That's it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, as always.
Cheers.
See you next video. Oh, let us know what other bike fit videos you want to see from Phil. We are going to plan some in, so yeah, they'll be coming up soon as well.
Brilliant.
Goodbye. It's not straight, it's wonky.
It's not.
Look at it rocking.
That's the whole thing, though. The bike's
my
completely
God.
secure.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Honestly, you'll be right when you're up there.
I know I'm back at your studio when there's a random pelvis on a bike. Oh, it's chipped actually.
That's brilliant. Yeah, see?
Did you just fracture that? Yeah. Go on.
Saddle. Oh, for God's sake. I'm sorting this out. So,
What is it from?
it fell out the skull of the skeleton.
And why are you keeping it?
I don't know.